Today, we're going to uncover the hidden power of salt as a weapon of spiritual warfare. Often, simple elements that we use daily have a significance and purpose beyond what we imagine. Salt, a mineral we all know and use in our everyday lives, plays a crucial role in spirituality and in the battle against evil. Why did Jesus tell his disciples that they were the salt of the earth? Stay with us until the end, because we'll unveil secrets that will surely surprise you and strengthen your faith. To begin, we must recognize a fundamental truth. Everything in this world was created by God, and everything has a purpose. From the smallest grain of sand to the stars in the sky, every element has a reason to exist. Salt, as part of God's creation, is no exception. Its purpose goes beyond seasoning food or preserving meat. It is a powerful element on the spiritual plane. In the book of Genesis, we read that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and among his creations was salt, an essential mineral from the start. We often think of salt only in physical terms, but its use has profound spiritual implications. Consider, for example, fire and water. Fire consumes, water gives life, and similarly, salt preserves and purifies. These elements, in God's hands, have a divine purpose that goes beyond what we can see. Now, let's reflect for a moment. Just as salt preserves food, could it not also preserve our faith in times of trial? Salt has the ability to maintain integrity, to protect against corruption, both in the physical and spiritual worlds. That's why it's crucial for us to understand its importance and know how to use it correctly in our spiritual lives. I want to take a brief pause to invite you to share your experiences with salt in the comments. Many people have found relief, healing, and strength through the use of salt in their prayers and spiritual rituals. For example, one sister shared how she saw a miraculous change in her life after anointing her hands with salt during prayer. If you've experienced something similar, I encourage you to share your story and how God has worked in your life through this special mineral. Returning to the topic, it's important to remember that in ancient times, salt was considered very valuable. It was not only used to preserve and flavor food, but also had significant use as currency in ancient Rome. In fact, the word salary comes from this practice. This shows that salt has always had intrinsic value, not only in the physical world but also in the spiritual. Jesus, in his teachings, used parables to communicate deep truths. Oil, bread, and wine are sacred elements in the Christian faith. However, we often accept the use of oil without question, but we doubt the power of salt. Some even associate it with dark practices, but this is a distortion of the truth. The enemy tries to steal our understanding of the true power of salt, diverting our attention from its use as a powerful spiritual tool. Let's consider a key example. Anointing oil is mentioned in the scriptures as a sacred element, used to consecrate and set apart for God. Likewise, salt has a spiritual purpose when we use it according to divine will. Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth," and with this, he was calling us to preserve, to maintain purity and integrity in a corrupt world. Now, it is vital that we understand how the enemy distorts what God has created. In some cultures, salt is associated with bad luck or witchcraft, but this is a deception. The enemy, being an usurper, tries to use the elements created by God for his own evil purposes. But we, as children of God, have the authority to use salt for its original purpose, to purify, to seal covenants, and to bless. Returning to the Bible, we see how salt is used in various contexts. In Leviticus, God commands that every offering be seasoned with salt. This wasn't just a ritual practice, it had a deep meaning. Salt was necessary to purify and sanctify the offerings, showing us that salt has purifying power in the spiritual realm. In Chronicles, we read about the Salt Covenant, a perpetual covenant that God established with David and his descendants. This covenant emphasizes the importance of salt as an element of durability and perpetuity, a promise from God that has no end. So, let's reflect. Why does the enemy use salt in witchcraft practices? It's because salt, created by God, has inherent spiritual power that the enemy tries to corrupt and use against us. But we, as believers, must reclaim this power and use it according to God's will. Salt is not a tool of evil, but a divine gift that, when used correctly, can break curses and bring abundant blessings. Finally, Let's remember the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. God used salt to punish disobedience, turning Lot's wife into a pillar of salt. This act shows us that salt can also be a symbol of divine judgment and justice, but at the same time, it is a symbol of purification and eternal covenant. Salt is the only element in the Bible that is used both to bless and to curse. It is a powerful weapon in God's hands, and we, as His children, have the responsibility to use it with wisdom and reverence. We should not fear the enemy who tries to corrupt the sacred, but we should use salt with the authority given to us by God. In conclusion, I want to invite you to reflect on the role of salt in your spiritual life. Are you using it as a tool of faith? Are you aware of the power that God has placed in this simple yet profound element? Remember Jesus' words, "You are the salt of the earth." Let's not allow the enemy to rob us of this truth. Let's use salt to preserve our faith, to purify our path, and to seal eternal covenants with our Creator. Thank you for joining us on this spiritual journey. If this message has touched you, I invite you to share it with others and leave your comments and testimonies below. May God bless you and guide you in the use of His gifts in your life.